It's time. A lot of you guys have been waiting for this moment, some of you more patiently than others, but today we're getting it done. This is the Nathan story. If you've been watching my content for a while, you have probably heard me curse the name Nathan before. And if you haven't watched my content before, then hi, welcome. We're spilling tea today. Nathan was a dungeon master that I played with years ago who ruined 2 different D&D campaigns in the most disastrously catastrophic way you could possibly imagine. I'm not gonna beat around the bush on this one. Nathan cheats on his wife, who is one of the players at the D&D table, with another one of the D&D players at the table. And this isn't even a spoiler because it's not a twist ending. This happens in the middle of the story, and then it's gonna happen again at the end of the story. Yeah, the tea is hot on this one. I'm so excited to share this. Anyways, let's not waste more time with intros. Let's go get cooking. Just kidding, I have to yap for one more second. This video is supposed to be a haha funny D&D horror story, not a hit piece on someone. I am a content creator. I'm a registered internet funny man, and the other people in this story do not have a platform like I do. As much fun as it is to rip on Nathan, there is a little bit of an internet boundary for me as a content creator, paladin of vengeance, to just absolutely obliterate a random commenter, right? So let's just be clear that I'm changing other names in this story. I'm not using identifying characteristics for a reason, and I don't want this to become anything more than a haha funny D&D story, okay? Also, I'm still friends with Nathan's now ex-wife. She's absolutely awesome, and she has given me the thumbs up to make this video, and I'm gonna give her some of the ad revenue from this video, you know, because you gotta help the homie out. But that's all for our little disclaimer thing. I just want to make sure, cover my bases, we're all on the same page. This is just a funny story, okay? Awesome. You gotta stay inside. I don't trust you not to jump off the balcony. Right, every D&D BBEG needs some sort of tragic background story to make their heinous actions a little bit more understandable to the D&D party. I gotta be honest, I got nothing for this story. I was friends with Nathan for a total of like 4 years, and during that entire time, the only backstory I remember about him was that he was really proud of having burned down an RV one time when he was a kid. I can't verify if that's true or not because, as you're gonna learn later on in this story, Nathan really liked telling absolutely apocalyptic lies at every opportunity. But that's the one Nathan backstory thing that has stuck in my head. I don't know if he told me other stuff and I just blocked it out because I don't want to think about it anymore, but that's what I got for you guys. But what I can tell you is the circumstances under which I was unfortunate enough to meet him. I met Nathan at one of my first jobs when I was a young and impressionable 15-year-old. And Nathan was my manager at that job. I'm putting air quotes around manager because he was never actually formally a manager at the place. He just sort of bossed people around and nobody cared enough to like not let him do that. He was like 6 or 7 years older than me. And I didn't really make any friends at that job because I was an absolutely terrible cook who would just show up and bread cheese sticks for 5 hours. It genuinely took me 5 hours to bread the cheese sticks. I was so bad at that job. There were definitely some red flags when I was working that first job with Nathan, but I was 15 and I kind of just wanted to make friends, so I didn't pay attention to them. And that one, that's on me, gamers. After about 2 years at that job, I quit, and this whole thing could have been avoided because I walked out of there hands clean, but they dragged me back in. Like a year after all of that, when I was 18, I received a fateful text from Nathan. I don't have the text anymore. I would love to show you guys screenshots, but I'm gonna draw them in MS Paint, so hopefully that's as good. But the text said something along the lines of, haha, hey, remember me? I was your old manager. You said you played D&D. I'm starting a D&D group. Do you want to play D&D with me? And that is how we begin our first Dungeons & Dragons campaign with Nathan. So I joined Nathan's campaign. Was that a doomed decision of mine? Maybe a little bit, but I have the forever DM curse, so if you give me an opportunity to play in a D&D campaign, I say yes, okay? We kick off our campaign and everybody gets along and things are pretty decent at first. The party was initially me, his wife, and his wife's childhood friend Reese. If you guys have watched any of my D&D live play series here, you know Reese. Some people got added to the party later on, which is an unfortunate fact, but I'll be honest, at the start of this whole thing, the campaign was pretty good. I actually really thought that Nathan was a decent dungeon master, which really sucks to have to say in this D&D horror story because I really want to just rip on him. But the storylines were solid, the immersion was there. I don't have that much to complain about the actual game. We are here to take a big steamy dump on this guy, but I also, have to be truthful. Nathan did really love bragging about how good of a dungeon master he was. Now, very recently, I did maybe sort of start watching Vox Machina, and it sort of made a lot of the first Nathan campaign make sense because 85% of what happened in Vox Machina is like exactly what was happening in Nathan's campaign. There's absolutely nothing wrong with committing plagiarism in Dungeons and Dragons, like we all do it, but it is funny to me how he was always yapping about he was like the best dungeon master on the planet and he was just ripping off Matt Mercer like bar for bar the entire time. Anyways, the first chunk of this campaign goes pretty well, and then we add Tracy to the group. Tracy is not the mistress's actual name, but I've been advised not to use other actual names in this story so that, people can't be traced and all that. And so Tracy's what we're working with here, okay? But Tracy joins our D&D group as well as Tracy's husband. Now, Tracy was, as the Zoomers would describe it, Nathan's work wife. And I'm not here to comment on the implications of having a work wife, but, maybe this should be a cautionary tale, potentially. Now, unfortunately, I don't have all of the lore on this first campaign because this was at the point in my life where I still thought I was going to be a doctor, so I was in college and working full-time, and I was kind of in and out of this Dungeons & Dragons campaign. We all know that the biggest BBEG in Dungeons & Dragons is scheduling, and I did fall victim to that. Eventually, I did choose to drop out of college and just play more Dungeons & Dragons, and honestly, it's worked out for me okay, so I really can't complain. So by the time we are delving into our first, Nathan incident trademark pending, I had actually dropped out of the first campaign and we had started up a second D&D campaign. But that second D&D campaign also had Nathan's wife and Tracy and her husband. The universe literally gave us a chance to avoid this entire D&D group explosion, and we reassembled all of the components to this bomb in a second identical Dungeons & Dragons group. But yeah, with that, all of the pieces are set. We have 2 entire marriages sitting at the Dungeons & Dragons table, plus me and Reese just kind of there spectating for the funsies. And yeah, it's time for an incident. So I know that this is supposed to be a haha funny tabletop role-playing game horror story, but this story also is sad in a lot of senses, and this part sucks a little bit to talk about. Nathan's wife was not stupid, and she could see a weird vibe going on between Nathan and Tracy, and she texted me about it. At this point, Nathan's wife was also in school and working full-time, and Tracy was over at her and Nathan's house a lot. I am not exaggerating this part at all. Nathan and Tracy had movie night together once a week, a wine tasting night together once a week. Tracy would come over to do laundry at Nathan's house once a week. She was there for D&D on Thursdays, obviously, and there were a few other reasons she was over there that I can't remember. I do remember that it was 5 or 6 nights a week that Tracy was over at Nathan's house, while Nathan's wife was in evening classes. I was pretty close to Nathan at this point. He and I would always joke around that I was his little brother. We had similar haircuts, similar hobbies. I would go to him for life advice because I was 20 and I was like, oh, this guy's older. He knows what's up. I really trusted him. That's kind of the bottom line here. And this is really starting to sound like my Oath of Vengeance origin story. But I trusted him. And so when Nathan's wife texted me and asked me if I thought that there was anything that she should be worried about between Nathan and Tracy, I told her that I didn't think that it was something that she should worry about. I told her that I thought that Tracy behaved really weirdly towards Nathan, but I told Nathan's wife that I didn't think there was any universe he would do anything unfaithful towards her. That one's on me, man. It really sucks to admit that you genuinely got deceived by someone just like through and through, even years and years and years later. Anyways, that's enough wallowing for now. Let's get back into the tea and away from my sad Oath of Vengeance feelings. My bad, gamers. I got a little bit too sad there for a second, so let's lighten the mood by taking a few random shots at Nathan for fun. These aren't our cannonball shots we're taking, but I got a lot of ammo. We may as well blow some of it. Weird Nathan L, number 1, we've got the shirt incident. I think this one is just really indicative of the type of person that we've gathered here today to make fun of. You all know how I like, cutting the sleeves off my shirts. It's very important for me to maintain my haha muscle bro persona or my feelings will catch up with me. So I'm at Nathan's house wearing a cutoff, and Nathan looks at my shirt and he says, "Hey, I think your shirt is stupid. I just want to tear the rest of your shirt off." It's probably also what he said to women who weren't his wife. And I said something like, "Hey, please don't tear my shirt. I like this shirt." And he said, "No, your shirt's really stupid. It just looks like it'd be so fun to just tear the shirt the rest of the way." And I said, "Dude, please don't do that." Side lore, I am Native American, and the shirt I was wearing very specifically was one that I got sent from my tribe, so it was like a special shirt to me. Not that that matters. If your friend tells you not to destroy their property, you probably just shouldn't destroy their property in general, but like, it was an extra special shirt. Anyways, there's like 10 or 15 seconds of silence after that before Nathan just reaches over and goes, "Haha," and just tears my shirt like 6 more inches down the side. After that, his wife ended up sewing my shirt back up to try to make amends for that, which also just feels indicative of a lot of things in this situation. And I was obviously upset, so like 30 minutes later when Nathan realized I was actually mad, he did apologize for doing that. But like, what are we doing, man? In hindsight, this just feels very indicative of who he was as a person and his general disregard for the desires or wants of anyone around him except for him. Weird Nathan L. number 2, we've got the wine incident. All right, so Reese, the Reese that we love, the Reese that I still play D&D with, right? He brought a bottle of wine over to Nathan's house. He brought the bottle of wine over to Nathan's house because he bought a very nice bottle of wine and he was like, "I would like to share this with one of my good friends." Like, drink the bottle of wine together, right? He brought it over because he was like, "Hey, Nathan, you want to share this bottle of wine? It's a nice bottle of wine. I want to share it with you because you're my friend." They ended up not drinking the bottle of wine that night, and Reese just left the bottle of wine over at Nathan's house because he was like, "Oh, we didn't get to share this bottle of wine, but I'm coming back over in 2 days. We can share it together then." Now, I feel like the concept of sharing is something that most of us are taught like around kindergarten, if not earlier, but maybe they don't teach that wherever Nathan's from. Because when Reese came back over 2 days later, Nathan had just drank the entire bottle of wine. Full stop. It was gone. He was incapable of waiting 48 hours to share an expensive bottle of wine with the friend who had purchased the expensive bottle of wine to share with him. I might just be bugging out and a little bit crazy, but I feel like most people who have some sense of common decency and care for other people in their life would have maybe made a different decision in this situation, maybe, perchance. Okay, I had fun. We're gonna get into the real first incident now, okay? Okay. Get out of the camera shot. All right. So I actually learned about Nathan cheating on his wife from Tracy. Nobody else actually told me initially, which is crazy to me in hindsight. Tracy hits me up to go to the gym one day, and on our way to the gym, I'm like, "Hey, you excited to play D&D this weekend?" And she tells me the following. She says, "Nathan and I actually crossed a boundary in our friendship, so I don't know if we're gonna be playing Dungeons and Dragons together anymore." So here's what that actually translated to. Nathan's wife got home early from her college classes one day and walked into the bedroom where Nathan and Tracy were naked on opposite sides of the room. Describing that as crossing a boundary in your friendship is maybe one of the most biblical understatements I have ever heard in my life. We're actually going to go to the whiteboard to diagram this now because I need you to comprehend the absolute insanity of the excuses that were presented for this encounter. Nathan's wife is here at the door. That is unlucky for sure. Nathan is here and Tracy is here, and both of them are wearing absolutely no clothes. I want you all to look at this situation very carefully and then listen to the 2 explanations that Nathan gave for this encounter. And he actually gave different explanations to different people, sort of like he was trying to tell them what he thought would make them be more lenient with him. Seems, a little bit manipulative, does it not? But of those explanations, here are our 2 major ones. Explanation number 1. Nathan and Tracy were just about to make a really big mistake where they were going to commit adultery, and Nathan's wife just happened to show up early and save them from making a really big mistake. Hey gamers, I don't know how many of you guys have ever hanky-pankied. I know this is a D&D channel, so like maybe we're out here struggling. But if you were going to engage in such activities, do you stand across the room from each other and fully get undressed before you engage in any such activities? I fear that the full nudity actually implies that maybe Nathan's wife did not arrive home in time to prevent the mistake. And our other explanation that we got from Nathan is that he and Tracy were suffering from very bad body dysmorphia, and so they just got naked in the bedroom together to compare bodies with one another to help with their body dysmorphia. I'm gonna let you all in on a little secret here. I struggle with a pretty healthy dose of body dysmorphia, and it has never once led to me getting platonically nude with one of my homies to compare our bodies. I'm gonna leave it up to you, lovely viewers, on whether you believe Nathan on either of these explanations, or if you think that these two were ham-boning and then they just jumped off each other when they heard his wife open the front door. I don't mean to influence your decision at all, but I have my theories. Anyways, Nathan and Tracy get caught, and his wife is upset, you know, as you would tend to be from a situation like this. And Nathan puts on an absolute masterclass of lying, manipulation, and damage control to save things. Now, I gotta be honest, I have absolutely no idea how he convinced his wife to give him a second chance on this one. Obviously, I was not there for the discussions that happened after this, but I do know that his wife decided to give him a second chance and try to fix things instead of just dumping his troglodyte butt out on the curb. I am not saying that she forgave him. Nathan's wife put him through the ringer, trying to make him make up for what happened. And obviously, probably should go without saying, Tracy was not allowed into future Dungeons and Dragons groups, or Nathan was not to interact with Tracy in any capacity outside of working together. Remember, this is his work wife. And at this point, I chose to put my trust in Nathan's wife. It wasn't my marriage, and if his wife was deciding to give him another chance, I didn't want to be sitting there being in the way of that, so I followed her lead on it. I swallowed my feelings and I went with the flow, mostly. I did, after I found out about the affair, send Nathan's wife a pretty long text. It basically said, hey, if you're giving this bum another chance, I support you in that, but I just want you to know I don't think it's a good idea. I think you should drop him like a bunch of rocks that you might drop on your D&D party. Which is going to bring us to our second red flag intermission. Hi guys, welcome to Red Flag Intermission number 2. These ones are worse. Number 3 red flag, Nathan tried to ice me out of his and his wife's life after I told her, hey, maybe don't give this guy a second chance. Yeah, you remember that text that I sent to his wife saying, hey, I support you, but also I don't think that you're making a good choice. I was the only one who did something like that in writing. Some of our other friends also communicated stuff like that to her, but I was the only one dumb enough to do it in a physical evidence format that Nathan could discover. I should preface this red flag by saying that this is a little bit of speculation on my part, but it all kind of makes sense. About 2 days after I sent his wife that text, I texted Nathan. Even if I was gonna follow his wife's lead on giving him a second chance, you know, with friend group shaking drama, I kind of needed to say some things to him before I was willing to let all of this just be water under the bridge. I literally didn't even get to go off on this goofster before he started going off on me and telling me that he and his wife had jointly decided that I was no longer welcome in their life because I was not someone that they could trust with their feelings and I did not have their best interests in mind. Like I said, I have no evidence that he saw the text of me telling his wife to drop his bum self, but the timing on this just feels so silly and convenient to me. It looks an awful lot like somehow he found out I wasn't all in on his second chance, and so he was trying to wall me out of his wife's life so that I wouldn't say such heinous things as, hey, maybe he doesn't deserve a second chance. When I got those texts from Nathan, I'm gonna be honest, that kind of rattled me because I was like, yo, what did I do? So I immediately texted his wife and said, yo, what did I do? And guess what? Guess what the funniest part about this whole little instance is? Nathan's wife had no idea that he was trying to wall me out of her life. He had never consulted her about this. When he said that they had jointly decided to kick me out of their life, that was not a joint decision. That was a Nathan decision. And I wasn't even trying to tattle on Nathan with this one. I was just trying to figure out what was going on. But as soon as she found out what was going on, all of a sudden Nathan had no problem with me anymore and was happy to welcome me back into their lives. Again, I have no evidence that this is correlated to me telling his wife to drop him, but the timing of this just makes me say, Also, I'm just now thinking about this while I'm recording this, but the way that he immediately took the offensive when I texted him about it meant that I never really actually laid into him the way that I think that I should have, because I ended up too busy defending myself from what he was saying. Every time I think about this story, I find another little way that I maybe was manipulated, and it makes me sad that my wisdom stat is literally a 6. And our other red flag for this intermission, I'm calling Holy Pity Party, bro. This one's much shorter, but is also just absolutely insane to me. After the first affair, it took a little while for the D&D group to, be able to hang out together without it being uncomfortable. Having huge drama like this makes it feel kind of awkward to hit someone up and say, hey man, you want to play some games tonight? But when we were all finally stable and hanging out together again, Nathan decided to inform the rest of us that he was very upset with us. Yeah, the goofball was actually mad at all of us on the other side of all of this, not the other way around, apparently. Why was he upset with us, you ask? Great question, viewer. He was upset that everybody had reached out to his wife to make sure that she was okay and if she needed anything, and nobody had been thoughtful enough to reach out to him to make sure that he was doing well. Hey, dog, it's almost like you are the bad guy in this scenario. I feel like we've already had several instances that maybe indicated that maybe he was interested in nobody's feelings except for his own, maybe, but this just feels like another little cherry on top of all of that. He was genuinely upset that people didn't text him and say, hey man, I know you just cheated on your wife. Are you doing okay, buddy? Surely I wouldn't do a sponsored segment during the Dungeons & Dragons affair tea spilling video, right? Wrong, here it is, but I promise it's worth it. This is the official Nathan's Affair Ruined My Dungeons & Dragons campaign t-shirt. It's supposed to be a t-shirt. I cut the sleeves off my shirt because I think it makes me look cool. But yeah, I sell these and I send a chunk of the profits to Nathan's ex-wife so that everybody that we care about from this story benefits. I also have shirts like my cat as a little evil imp who eats trash and a DNR for your D&D character if you really want them to just die. I'll put the link to the store down in the bio and if you want a Nathan's Affair shirt, go check them out. Okay, that's all I'm gonna say. Bye. So after the first affair, things more or less went back to normal. Obviously, Tracy was not in any of our D&D groups anymore on account of the fact that Nathan's wife probably would have flayed her if she saw her again. But we were back to playing D&D together and hanging out and being friends, all as a big, wonderful community. In hindsight, I will always be kicking myself for ever giving him a second chance, as will everybody in this situation. But when I talked to Nathan's ex-wife about doing this video, she actually said something that has helped me out a lot. If she would have just dropped him after the first affair, she said that she thinks she maybe always would have wondered if he would have changed and if they could have saved their marriage because at the beginning they really did love each other. But by sticking around and seeing round 2 of the same thing, she knows 100% certain that guy sucks and she has no regrets at all getting out of there. And you know what? Good for you, queen. So small side Tater lore at this point in our story. I worked as a nurse's aide during the COVID pandemic. I am very happy that I did that. It was a great experience, although, it was a little bit maybe hard on my mental health, because of the pandemic. So after COVID was dying down, I said, hey, I need to get out of healthcare right now or I'm gonna lose it. So I was back in the job market, and the job market sucks. I think it just always sucks. But hey, you know where I could always get a quick job and they already know me? The restaurant that I met Nathan at, the restaurant that I worked at years ago. Nathan still worked there. And this part actually will forever confuse me, and this will make sense once we get into the second incident. Nathan pushed me to come back and work with him. Nathan said, hey dude, you looking for a job? You should come work with me. We'll work together. It'll be just like old times. We'll be best buds again. So I did. I applied. I got my old job back. I was back in the cheese stick factory. I was back to spending 4 hours breading cheese sticks because I was still a terrible cook. And I was back there because Nathan specifically requested I come back and work with him. So let's get into the second incident. Hi, okay, so I'm working with Nathan at the restaurant again, right? I clock back in, I put on my apron, I spend another 4 hours in the cheese stick breading factory. Again, it takes me 4 hours because I am still the worst cook known to mankind. And remember how I said that Tracy was Nathan's work wife? Remember that little tidbit, how I said they worked together at the start of this story? Guess who is also still working at the same restaurant? Now, this is something that Nathan had discussed with his wife. It's not like he was just sneakily working with this person still, but in their couples counseling, Nathan and his wife had agreed that he was to have absolutely no interactions with Tracy outside of the absolute bare minimum to, do their jobs together. It wasn't viable for Nathan to quit the job because it paid decent and they needed the money, but he and his wife had agreed that when Nathan and Tracy were on the same shift together, it was supposed to be I need 3 cheese sticks. Okay, and that was all they were gonna do. Surely Nathan can be trusted in this regard, right? So I finish up my first shift at the cheese breading factory, and I'm walking back out to the employee parking lot. On the walk to the employee parking lot, there's a door where you can see into the bar at the restaurant. The restaurant has like a food side and then a bar side. And as I look into the bar, I see something very puzzling. Nathan, who got off work a couple hours ago, is sitting at the bar. There's only one other person at the bar. Do you all want to shout out a guess as to who was at the bar with Nathan alone? It's Tracy. It's Tracy. Tracy's at the bar alone with Nathan. They are just sitting over there for an undetermined amount of time, having drinks one-on-one with each other. Remember, this is the person who Nathan agreed he would not interact with out of bare necessity work functions. Unless slamming brewskis for hours is a bare necessity work function, I don't really know what to tell you guys on this one. I gotta be honest, this was such an absurd sight that I genuinely didn't think anything about it until like the second and third and fourth time that I saw them alone at the bar together. I am genuinely sorry that I am as ignorant as I am. Like, I actually trolled this so bad. Basically, any day that Nathan and Tracy's shifts ended around the same time, they would just go over and drink together until one of them had to go home, presumably because one of their spouses was going to get home and would find out that they were just drinking together at the bar. Now, I don't think that this is an absurd take from me, but if you have already been caught cheating with a woman, and then you're going over to the bar after work to get some drinks, and you see that person at the bar, you go, oh, I should actually go drink literally anywhere else. Like, are you incapable of going to other bars for drinks? I mean, there was a 20% employee discount on the bevies at the bar, so maybe the 80 cents he was saving per drink was worth his marriage? I don't know, man. I cannot pretend to see the logic in this one. But anyways, I start seeing this, and I go to a few of the other cooks that we work with, and I say, hey, do you guys notice anything weird going on between Nathan and Tracy? Because everyone at the restaurant knew about the affair from the first time. This was not a secret at all. And you guys are just absolutely not gonna believe this one. Yeah, they had noticed weird things going on. Like, they all knew. Nook, it's not dinner time, dog. I'm making content. I need you to let me do what I need to do. Not only had everybody noticed that Nathan and Tracy were hanging out together a weird amount, some of them, had seen them kissing, you know, after the first time they got having the affair. I'm actually gonna crash out. I hadn't thought about a lot of this until I started working on the script for this video, and like going back through and itemizing all of the absurdity of this story is, I'm rage baiting myself right now. This is no exaggeration. There was a sign in the basement of this restaurant that said employees are not supposed to display affection in this basement. And the sign was there because Nathan and Tracy kept displaying affection in the basement. There were also several nights where Nathan and I would close the kitchen at 8 p.m. and then we would go, hey, you want to play games when we get home? Heck yeah, I'll hop on games when I get home. And then Nathan wouldn't get on games until like 10:30 or 11 p.m. And he would always tell everybody, oh, sorry, I got hung up at work. And again, I'm an idiot for not questioning this more in the moment, but like, buddy, I closed the kitchen with you. We locked the door together. What did you get caught up with at work? I actually know what you got caught up with at work. It was your mistress. And this is the point where I want to bring up again that I am genuinely so confused why Nathan invited me to work with him again if he was doing this stuff at the workplace. There are two options here. Option A, he was deliberately trying to sabotage his marriage in order to get a divorce, which doesn't make any sense to me because he was the one who was fighting so hard to get a second chance after the first affair. He got caught cheating, his wife said, I want to leave you, and he said, no, please, I can change. And then, clearly he didn't. But option B, if he's not just trying to sabotage his marriage, makes less sense. Because did he just think that I wasn't gonna say anything? He was being very blatant about all of this in front of me. Did he think that this was just like a bro code thing where I would see him continuing to fraternize with his mistress and just be like, dude's gonna do what dude's gonna do? Spoiler, I did not respect that bro code, so let's get into the second explosion. I did not directly inform Nathan's wife about the ongoing intimacy between him and his mistress at their job. I actually went to Reese first because Reese had known Nathan's wife since they were like 4 years old, and I was like, hey dude, what is the best way for me to break this news to her, because this sucks? Reese decided that he wanted to sit down with Nathan's wife one-on-one and, you know, tell her in person and try to soften the blow a little bit. Unfortunately, she was insanely busy juggling morning work and evening classes, both full-time, trying to, you know, better her and her husband's future, while her husband sat around at the bar for 4 to 5 hours a day with the woman that he had already been caught cheating with. Was waiting to tell her optimal? Maybe not, but I fully defer to Reese's judgment on this one because, like I said, he knew her since she was 4, you know, I trust that. He was not able to tell Nathan's wife for a month, which did lead to maybe the funniest month of a Dungeons & Dragons campaign I have ever played in. Reese and I both knew that the D&D group was not going to exist in a month, so we got to spend those sessions literally just trolling and rage baiting Nathan because we knew that nothing we did would actually have any consequences. We just sort of wandered around poisoning commoners and ignoring plot hooks and exploding things because Nathan took a ton of pride in his masterfully crafted homebrewed world that was actually just ripping off Matt Mercer. But we did very much enjoy just getting to troll him for about a month before things exploded. It's the little things in life, you know, you gotta take what you can get. Anyways, Reese eventually sits down with Nathan's now ex-wife and says, hey bucko, about your marriage, it needs to explode right now. And she goes directly home that night to secure the bag that is a divorce. This next part is actually insane, and I think it speaks to just how manipulative Nathan was, but in a really frustratingly charismatic way. During that conversation where she was trying to divorce him, he actually managed to persuade her that me and Reese were making all of this up. He like twisted it around to where Reese was making it up because Reese wanted to be with Nathan's wife, and he was trying to get them divorced so that he could have a shot with her. Reese is married to someone else, by the way, and Reese, you know, is respecting the sanctity of his marriage and not going after other women. I don't know, Nathan, maybe take notes on that one. We actually had to fight back against that with me threatening to go to the restaurant and get the security camera footage of him being adulterous. And again, I just want to point out that I am so confused why Nathan invited me to work with him in the first place, because it was clearly not to sabotage his marriage, because after he got caught, he was still fighting for a third chance. Anyways, one more red flag intermission, and then we'll get into the conclusion of this bad boy. Okay, last red flag intermission because I just have more ammo than I want to shoot at Nathan before we get to the end of this video. We've got the I'll be on in 10 classic line, but Nathan was a just wonderful example of this that really rage baited me really effectively. I know this isn't bad as the rest of the stuff that's been going on, but just like let me rant for a second, okay? Nathan was the classic perpetrator of making plans to play games with somebody and then just sort of not showing up anywhere around the time that he said he was going to be online. And so you would just end up sitting alone in a Discord call when he told you he was going to be on for like a long period of time. My personal record was waiting for him for like an hour and a half and then getting frustrated and just going and playing golf. And he texted me like halfway through my round of golf being like, yo, I'm in the Discord call, where are you at, bro? And when we would confront him on this, he actually, this is not even a joke, I genuinely couldn't make something this stupid up if I wanted to. He would use the excuse of being a great husband to explain why he just didn't show up for hours. When he hopped in the Discord call 2.5 hours late and you were like, hey dude, what are we doing? Like, I've been waiting for you. He would say, oh, sorry, I was talking to my wife. You wouldn't understand prioritizing your wife over other people. I am not making that up. Me saying that sounds like I'm making that up. That is not a joke. That is what he told us. And our second red flag of this intermission and our last little random shot I want to take at him, Nathan said that the reason he cheated on his wife was because his wife was sober. Nathan's wife was a recovered alcoholic. She is an AA sponsor. She is very strong. I'm very proud of her for that. And one of the things that he told her when the divorce was going through, to be spiteful about like, oh, this is why I chose her over you, was that he wasn't satisfied with the marriage because he wanted to be married to somebody who could be a drinking buddy for him. His wife wouldn't drink alcohol at the bar, and therefore he had to cheat on her. Hey, dipwad, if you want a partner who is going to be a drinking buddy, maybe don't marry someone who is in Alcoholics Anonymous. Yeah, she was in there when they started dating. This is just one of the most ludicrous lines that I've ever seen dropped. This is absolutely mind-melting to me. All right, let's get to the outro. Right, so after the realization that Nathan never actually stopped boinking the woman that he had the affair with the first time, Nathan's wife did actually drop him, and I am so proud of her for that. Unfortunately, I did have to keep working with Nathan and Tracy for several months after the cataclysmic meltdown of his marriage, and also our D&D group, which is the real tragedy of all of this. Was that insanely awkward? Yes, absolutely, and undoubtedly, although, you know, the job market was bad, and I did have a little bit of fun with it. We had an Alexa speaker in our kitchen, and me and the other kitchen goobers made an entire adultery-themed playlist on the work Alexa. So at any point during our shifts, if Nathan walked in, we could say, Alexa, play Nathan's adultery playlist, and it would play like 4 hours of music themed around cheating on your wife. I also always worked evenings closing the kitchen, and, you know, after the great falling out, Nathan worked mornings. So like 3 times a week when I was closing the kitchen, I would set an alarm every 4 minutes to play Scotty Doesn't Know throughout Nathan's entire shift. It was like 50 alarms that I set every single time. Does any of this actually make up for the disaster that we have just covered? No, not even a little bit. But I do hope that I made his life just a little bit worse. Anyways, after Nathan and his wife separated, he, for some reason, immediately got together and moved in with Tracy. I do just want to touch on the fact that Nathan still maintains to this day that he never cheated on his wife and this all was a huge misunderstanding and I made up the whole second incident. Ignore, you know, the security camera footage and stuff, I guess. But despite all of this allegedly being an elaborate Tater conspiracy, he did immediately move in with his mistress as soon as the divorce went through. It's a really weird coincidence that he never cheated with her before, but as soon as they were divorced, he was already moving in with her. That's just crazy. What do I know? Literally the very evening this whole second explosion came to light, Nathan blocked me and everyone in our communal friend group on every single platform I can possibly imagine. He got us on Steam, Instagram, Discord, the Enlisted Battle Launcher, which is a game launcher specifically for one game. He went onto that one game to block us. I guess he was really worried I was gonna reach out to him on the World War II Battle Simulator game to give him crap about his marriage explosion. One of our friends, Mike, did manage to take a picture of his own poop and send Nathan the picture of poop right before he got blocked. So Mike, I love you for that, and that's just great work, man. You are doing God's work. But the bottom line is that Nathan knew that the goose was cooked and he just slunk away from the friend group, never to be heard from again. And I do take solace in the fact that he knew he was so cooked that he just bailed on it entirely. I did have to see Nathan at a wedding somewhat recently, and that was incredibly uncomfortable because I did have to interact with him. And you want to know what he did? Nook, you are chunky, and if you stand on the table, you shake the camera. You need to get off the table, okay? So I ran into Nathan with that wedding, and he sought out interacting with me, and this is what he did. It was so uncomfortable and uncanny. Hi, buddy. How you been? And yeah, he just stared at me smiling like that for like 8 seconds straight. This was after I had started making video content and I had started taking steaming dumps on him on the internet recreationally. So I'm assuming he knew that I'd been doing that, and that's why he was so weird to me in that moment. I told his ex-wife about that interaction because I was like, yo, dog, you are never gonna believe what your goofy ex-husband did at the wedding that I saw him at. And she said that this was like an intimidation thing that he would frequently do when he was angry at someone. Like he would just get comically smiley and friendly as a way to be like, I'm not scared of you, that's why I'm being so nice to you. It didn't come off that way. It just really sucked to look at him when he was doing that because it was uncomfortable. But I thought that I should include the last time I ever actually had to see him in person. Okay. I also just want to take a second to say that Nathan's now ex-wife is doing really awesome for herself. I said she was in school earlier. She's finishing up her school and her clinicals and all that stuff. She's with a really awesome guy now. And to my knowledge, he hasn't ruined multiple D&D campaigns by cheating on her, so, you know, it was gonna be really hard to do worse than Nathan. She has grown from this, and she considers herself infinitely happier now than she ever was with him, so double thumbs up for her. Oh, and our most important tragedy out of all of this, our D&D campaigns with Nathan, those never did get a happy ending. My favorite paladin that I ever made still never got his cool redemption arc, and honestly, out of everything we've covered this video, that is clearly the biggest tragedy that we're going to touch on. Will you get your gross cat feed off the cutting board? Hey gamers, thanks for making it to the end of this one. I really wanted to make this a haha funny D&D horror story video, but objectively this is kind of a sad story that ended with a marriage ending, and you know, if I'm gonna tell the story truthfully, it's also gonna be a little bit of a downer. Hope this wasn't too much of a downer for you though. To take one final shot at Nathan, just because it's a favorite pastime of mine, Nathan claimed that he could bench press more than me. And I would love to show you all a picture of him because it would immediately be obvious that that's false, but I don't want to just dox him at the end of the video, right? I just need you all to trust me that I go to the gym 5 times a week training specifically for strength, and the entire time I knew him, he literally never touched a weight once. Yet he claimed he could overhead press 235 pounds for reps. If you don't go to the gym, that's a lot. Look, Nathan, if you happen to be watching this video, you can send me a video of you overhead pressing 235 pounds and I will eat my shoes and post the video on my channel, okay? But as much fun as it is taking shots at Nathan, there are moments where I genuinely miss that friendship. Not miss the person that he turned out to be, but missing the friendship that I thought I had with a person who turned out not to be a real person and was just a facade he was putting on. I'm sure there's some cool word in another language that describes missing something that never actually existed, but I wouldn't know because I don't read things. I think that feeling's mutual to a lot of people who were in that situation with me, and yeah, that feeling is absolute buns. Moral of the story, be a good person to your partners, be a good person to your friends, don't pull a Nathan. But I hope you all enjoyed the Nathan saga. I will continue to take shots at him, you know, for the foreseeable future to uphold the tenets of my oath of vengeance and because it makes me giggle. And that's how you catastrophically dismantle 2 D&D campaigns in a row while also ruining your marriage. Oh yeah, and don't forget about the merch because a portion of the profits goes to his ex-wife because that's a funny bit, okay? Okay, bye.